any time and it just becomes
Right.
chaos. Here we can invite people to the stage and kind of keep control of the event. I have people down at Blue Dog watching it to redirect people if they happen to go there.
Virtual ushers.
Mm-hmm. So, Dave, you going to do the intro?
Oh, sure. Well, no, 1 minute.
Well,
T
hold your
minus
breath.
60 seconds.
Craig, he's English.
Yes.
He is always prompt.
Not in my
Well, no.
experience.
I think I'm a little ADD, Terry, but my other half is always prompt. That's the reason I get places on time. That's it.
See, in the military, if you're not 15 minutes early, you're late.
You're late, yeah.
Right.
I worked in direct sales for a long time. It was the same motto there.
Yep.
All right, I think we're about to tick over. So I just want to welcome everyone to Spellmonger Conclave. This is our second event this year with Terry able to attend, and we're really grateful to have him here after a grueling writing schedule over the last few weeks that kept all beta readers on their toes.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. But when you're on a roll, you're on a roll, and I had a deadline, and I was going to hit it, and damned if I won't. So
yeah, well, I want to say it was a chore, but it wasn't. So, but no, all good. So, do welcome everyone. If you would like to ask a question or join us on the stage to do that, please feel free to put your hand up. Alternatively, you can add your question in the chat. We're probably going to run this session for around about an hour. If the I don't want to use a Harry Potter imagery, but if the hourglass is running quickly, we might leave it going for a little bit longer. But otherwise, yeah, let's have a good evening and welcome everybody. Over to you, Terry.
okay, thank you all for coming. I'm trying to be mindful of spoilers for some of the later books. Because I certainly don't want to mess up anybody's reading enjoyment. So I'll try to keep things as vague and nebulous as possible while still doing my best to answer your questions. But I'm feeling relieved and relaxed now that the Golden Goblin is under my belt. Completed the rough draft of it last week. Took a couple of days off. Even went to the beach. To spend time with my mother-in-law. So I'm not sure how much of a vacation that was, but it was away from my computer. And my kids took me to a bookstore and then shook me down for over so I could thank them for missing me, I guess, over the course of a couple of months. But I'm back now.
Terry,
starting the rewrite of the. Okay, I'm using the camera mic. Unfortunately, let me. Did it come back?
Oh, did it come back and then you cut out again?
Here he comes. We're not here.
That's all right. I'm just going to say welcome to a few familiar faces. Okay. Sorry, Terry, are you back?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes. Gotcha.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, good. You're good. All right. I should be back, and I swear to God, Hayden's going to get me a better camera rig. Part of it's my equipment, and part of it is the fact that I live on a mountain and use Starlink, and so every now and then we'll have the free like I just did.
Oh, we lost you again there. We do have a question from the audience. So from Jake, if he's still here, or I don't know if he's. I think he might have. Oh no, he's still here. The question is, what's the current reach of Spellmonger? In other words, the audience size, etc.
That's an excellent question, and I wish I had precise numbers. I've had to go on, and it depends on what constitutes the audience. What if I go back and I count up the number of, for example, audiobook sales that I've had for Spellmonger, the very first book in the series, and I count everybody who's read Spellmonger in that. I can get a number, but I also know that about a half of the people who picked up Spellmonger didn't go on to pick up War Mage. The good news is that just about everybody who picks up War Mage goes through the rest of the series. So I can get a rough estimate. And if I take those figures and add them into what I know are my Kindle figures, it appears that Spellmonger has a reach at this point of about a 250,000. And that doesn't mean that they all jump on the next book right away. Some of them are still in the process of the series, or will go back and re-listen to the entire series before they get the next book, just so that they have everything fresh in mind. So it's difficult to pinpoint, but right now we're sitting on about 250,000 with almost no promotional program to try to extend that reach. Most of that has been word of mouth or suggestions on Kindle or the app. Now, what I was telling the Garden Society before this began was I recently had a meeting with Podium Publishing, who's my audiobook, and they have elected to take a select number of Spellmonger books and have them offered on other platforms, in addition to Audible, which used to be verboten. But once Spotify captured about 25% global audiobook market, Podium thought it was a good idea to try to invest some of its more leading authors and authors had enough back catalog to be able to handle it, to lose the advantages that you get for not subscribing exclusively with Audible, and invest in these other platforms. Spotify's the main one, but they're not the only ones. I found out this weekend while my kids were robbing me at the bookstore, because Magic cards cost money, that I had the lady of the bookstore look it up, and the largest publishing distributor in the United States now carries the first 3 Spellmonger books in both YA trilogy, which means that theoretically any bookstore in America should be, and probably beyond, should be able to wholesale cost and offer them for sale on their shelf. So my reach could get boosted. I'm guessing between natural growth and these new audiences, I'm estimating as much as 50,000 this year by the end of the year. So I'm hoping that we'll really be in 300,000 area. When we get to 500,000, I might start getting some serious attention. Some of the production studios out there for an audiovisual treatment, something else that we were discussing before the beginning of the conclave. So I'm very hopeful. It's growing. There's no doubt about it. At one point, it was growing exponentially, and that was exciting. And its rate of may have declined a bit. The pool of fantasy out there. I know it doesn't feel like that, but there are only people who are to be interested. But then again, who just like John Lee and wanted to follow him as a narrator, and who were not fantasy, but nonetheless got hooked on. So I'm hopeful that by the end of the year, around 300,000, and with all the new releases I have coming out, The Talon and the Flame, for example, is a romantic, and it's an experiment that I'm doing, traditionally published through Podium. They now have a we're going to take the numbers of that and compare it to the numbers of the goblin, which will, and they're roughly the same size, slightly different audiences. One is men's is room, but I want to compare the back
Sorry,
end.
Terry. Sorry, you're in and out. You're in and out. So we get some, and then we lose you. Then we get some, then we lose you.
Okay, I'm so sorry about that.
Oh, don't worry. It's just to let you know.
Okay, I was just going to say to conclude that question. I'm shooting for 500,000 by the end of next year. But that's just a pie in the sky goal, and I'm more than happy to just let the numbers roll in as they do. But yeah, about $250,000 right now. So great question. All right, we're ready for another one.
Yeah, we got Carrot Boy. Does it show you how many times people have read a little? Oh, I think it's the same kind of question, Carrot Boy. And if so, what's the highest count you've seen? 250,000. Next question: have you named any characters after Magic the Gathering cards or legends? I don't know what
I have
that is.
not. I do. I do. I'm an OG Magic the Gathering player. My first deck was from the alpha set. I played for about 2 or 3 years and then put my cards away. But Hayden, my youngest son, is mad for Magic. He plays in tournaments about twice a week. He knows the rules, all the cards, all the generation, all the gossip, all of that. And we've discussed it. We've actually discussed doing kind of a vanity spellmonger deck that wouldn't be official, but would be hysterical. Just imagine cards for those of you like Caswell on the would make a great card. Would make a great card. Olmec the Green would be a great card. So we've played around with the idea. Something that Hayden's half serious about developing. But I haven't named any characters from there, but Hayden has pointed out that some of my characters share names with Magic the Gathering cards. So
Well, we got questions.
Sounds cool.
that
Follow-up
were sent
question
in
from
earlier.
Jake. Who's your favorite MTG commander?
Again, I don't play Commander. Hayden does, and he would be more than happy to answer that question and discuss it for hours. He's offered to teach me to play, but I've been honestly for the last 7 months I've been in this chair in front of the computer typing every day, so I haven't had a lot of time for. Maybe this summer I will develop a favorite commander. I think I've played one commander game, and it was with a deck that Hayden built, so I can't really claim it was my deck. But I had a lot of fun playing it. I like, and the change in the rules is interesting for a guy who hasn't played in 20 years. But I'll report back to you at the end of the summer and let you know.
Well, we got a question online. Minulin's arrival in Faris bears parallels to the end of Japan's isolation in the beginning of the Meiji era. Was this a direct parallel or just coincidence?
It a little of both. I hadn't drawn that particular parallel historically speaking, but it's not dissimilar, and I don't disagree with that. I think that the two have a lot. It's an opening of the society, and I think that's what Min is going to do as he goes forward. I appreciate that parallel though, and I'll keep that in mind as I write sequels where a lot of those sort of issues will come forward. That's a great suggestion. I appreciate it.
Sounds good. So, spellmongery question: do you have a methodology for naming your? Or do you have a methodology for your naming conventions? That's a question and a question.
I do. Although it varies depending on the type of character or the type of word that I'm looking for. I just went through this in a big way with the Golden Goblin as I was. because we had a lot of new words and names for Gervani characters that I had to play around with. My naming conventions often revolve around how the names sound to the English-speaking. In the case of the Gervani, a lot of the words that I chose are derived from Bulgarian sources. Because after listening to dozens of languages, Bulgarian sounds harsher in a lot of ways to the English speaker when they hear it. For the Alka Alan, I use a lot of Finnish, believe it or not, because Tolkien once said that Finnish and Welsh were the two most beautiful European languages. And he based a lot of his Elvish language on Finnish in particular. So if I want a really fancy name, I'll go to and their take on it. And sometimes I'll take that name. If it doesn't quite work, I'll change around some letters. I ain't proud. I will screw around with the name a bit until it sounds right. And there have been a couple of times, especially in the Golden Goblin, where I started with one name or word, and then I tried to imagine John Lee's action came across that word and had to pronounce it properly. And I was like, nah, I better change this or he's going to leave. And so in the rewrite, there will be a tightening up of a bit, maybe some small changes, but that's my convention. When you're this is kind of apropos, just because my children and I, when we were at the bookstore, we also went to the Romantasy section, read aloud some of the Romantasy offerings. And I'm not going to say which books in particular, but one of them had thorns in the title. Honestly, some of the most ridiculous naming conventions, and I mean, I hate to criticize another pro, but dialogue and naming conventions, and I've never seen so many Aries can't before. I'm just going to leave it at that. There were some. They are. I feel a lot better about how the Talon and the Flame will do, just based on writing alone. I'll just leave it at that. But some of the naming conventions were just. It had me shake. How you would expect your reader to really embrace that name, and I've got some really bad names. Garkescu. That's a horrible name. Merkandar, another horrible name. Minolin was a placeholder, and I'll figure out a better name and change it eventually. 17 books in, and it kind of stuck. So I guess I'm okay. But that's a great question too. It's difficult for a fantasy writer to figure out naming in a world that they're inventing. For some things, I'll use regional conventions for naming. For example, in Alshari Wilderland, having Dean at the IN or some variation of Rardine, Grindine. There have been a lot of characters. So you're building a regional flair, especially if other cultures don't use that convention. It kind of separates things out. And of course, with the Alka Alan, if they're really important, they get more syllables in there. Is pretty much my naming. And humans steal that every now and then. Erathaniel and names like where they've. Next question.
Oh, we lost that last sentence, Terry. We got Arathaniel, and then you cut out.
Yeah. In some cases, humans will have stolen the Alka Alan names or naming conventions or words, just like in the Middle Ages, they would take Latin and Greek names and localize them in some way. And humans have done that with Erathaniel being a one of the big examples.
Yeah.
And then, after a couple of generations, they even forget where those names came from.
Yeah.
And bring it into their society.
I think English is the more I learn about language, the more English fascinates me. So learning the nuance between the Norman language and the Anglo-Saxon, Germanic versus the French versus the
Right.
Viking
Oh, and don't
influence.
forget Celtic. Don't
And
forget the Celtic
and the whole,
influence.
and the
Then
whole
you got to break
Western
it down
side.
between the P Celts and the Q Celts because they both had an influence at different points in history, and it just gets crazy after a while. English is wonderful. It's a big bowl of thick stew that I love wading through.
Yeah,
Next
definitely
question.
enjoyable.
Could the alcohol
Have you got one from online?
Oh, never mind. Go ahead, Dave.
No, I was just. Have you got one from online? Have you?
Yes.
Go for it.
Could the Alkaline kill one of the gods with the same type enchantment on Rudy's dagger?
The short answer is yes, kinda. Because of the nature of the gods, they spring not from any original source, but the human subconscious. What would happen in a case like that is essentially the dagger and the other swords and dagger weapons that are will disrupt the enneagram to the point where it can't reform as it was. So what would happen if you stabbed Ishi with one is that Ishi would cease to exist as Ishi, but the need for a goddess of love and beauty in humanity would make her remanifest in a different form with a different memory. And that's something I've played with. If we see something like that, it won't be until towards the end of the series. At that point, yeah, sure, killing off a couple of gods, no problem. But right now, I've developed them as characters, and I'd hate to see them go. That being said, the gods are not the only kind of thought forms that use this sort of methodology. Again, hate to spoil it much, but let's just say that Jonik's most recent powers also produce this sort of thought form that could be similarly disrupted. And there are other creatures who could manifest that way that could be damaged by that. And once I reveal the kind of method of action of how the dagger works, you'll see why it's kind of a nuclear weapon, magic, and really I haven't explored it yet. As we make our way through the series.
At this point, we probably would want to announce we're probably going to get into spoilery stuff. So if any of you who are online,
I think
who don't want to get spoiled, you might want to drop off.
I think that's a good time, Greg. So we've had a little bit of a grace period for the last 20 minutes, 25 minutes to not include any spoilers, and I think gloves are off now. This is a Spellmonger Conclave, and we have Terry on the line, and his wife is not in the background.
So, no, she's asleep. Yes. She's asleep. She stayed up till 5 a.m. this morning, and so she's crashed out.
Excellent.
And she's not here.
What's up with Alya's lungs? Lavastian mentioned them, and later Minilin noticed them during Valerian's birth.
Okay, I'll go ahead and reveal this. Although this is it's not a major plot point yet, but I wanted to plant that seed. Everybody who was in that tower the night of Uruk's rebellion and was exposed to pulverized Erionite. Well, Erionite is basically an amber. An amber dust can get in your lungs, and once it embeds itself into your lungs, you've got a little residual Erionite just floating around there, stuck in the goo of your lungs. And that's true for Alya. That's true for Minilin. That's true for Kendall, who was there. I believe Rondell was there. That's correct. Garkescu was there.
Yeah.
I think Sire Kusi was there too at some point, and Sire K was definitely there. I'm not sure about Sire Kusi. I'd have to go back and look at that. But everybody who did that has a little bit extra Erionite that they can draw upon. They just don't realize it. It may very well become an important plot point at some point. I'll just leave it at that.
I got one more here.
That's
and
a
then we'll
really
take
good.
questions.
Who dropped that question? Because that was from. We only found that out in honeymoon, and that was books ago. Who are you?
Darth Mintos sent it to me. I don't know who it's from.
Okay.
Well,
Very good
great question, great catch. That's actually a gun on the mantelpiece I put back in the very first book that I haven't exploited yet. I'm running out of those, but that is one that's up there that will come into play probably more than once at some point. I'll just leave it at that.
And I got one more from online. I
Okay.
recently read about Sir Ganulin being made caretaker of the Astasi Hall and how he swore revenge against Natho of Anaran for betraying him during the raid on Emma Wood. Yet I don't recall them ever meeting afterwards.
Yes, they haven't. There may well be a meeting. And honestly, I don't favor Sir Ganulin's chances. Nautha is an adept war mage who is the daughter of an adept war mage, and she's married to an adept war mage. And especially, and only the Garden Society beta readers will really understand this. Everybody else, but let's just say that the knights that Sir Festerin was part of, they kind of got knocked around a lot by the rise of the War Magi, and not all of. And while Ganulin is at the point where he's accepted it, and I don't think he's entirely laid aside his grudge, I think he's going to realize that attacking a Viscount of the Mage Law who has that many powerful friends is. But that doesn't mean.
Oh no, Terry! Stop! Sorry. So we got up to attacking a Viscount of the Mage Law, and then you cut out.
Okay, sorry about that. Yes, attacking a Viscountess of who's married to a Viscount in the Mage Law is not a wise career move. Basically, Ganulin has a secure position right now. He's learning an awful lot. He still doesn't have Rhaenyra. He's just a dude with a sword. Unless he wants to resort to treachery, he's going to get his ass kicked in any contest with Nautha.
See, I'm not sure she's called. I'm not sure she's called Nautha Venarin anymore. I think she might go for the name change. Nautha, Scion of Death.
That might be, she'll come up. Between her and Azar, they'll come up with a new nickname for her, and she may earn one. Now that we're in the non-spoiler, in the spoiler territory, hopefully everybody has read Practical Act and knows Nautha's big news, which is that she and Azar are pregnant. And that's going to change her approach for a little while, but it's also going to make her a lot devious. One thing that we really haven't seen from Nautha is how much of a thinker she is, and she favors her father more than her husband and that sort of thing. And since she's besties with the new heir to Faris, that's going to present her with some opportunities that will show her talents off in a way, especially in Sea Mage when we have the impending attack of the Merwini. So I'm really hopeful that her character and just as of yet, she's been a great character ever since Foot Wizard. not Foot Wizard, Journeyman. Lady Mask was a great villainess, and I think her transformation has been helpful. But again, she was a tool of Sharul, and there's a lot of questions whether or not she's compromised.
Right.
And she's not the only one. I can't wait till Golden Goblin is released, and everybody gets to see what has happened with some of the other characters. Were under Sharul's thrall, and to deal with his return.
She opened some eyes when she had some Gravani friends come to the wedding.
Well, yeah. Guess who's coming to dinner? And I thought that really demonstrated her character as a warrior. She's not going to disavow people who stood beside her.
You're cutting out, Terry.
And can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that there's a real she has a real warrior spirit and a real loyalty to the people that she's served, and that's going to cause her problems in the future because she's served on both sides. Yeah. While she is loyal to humanity, that doesn't have some mixed emotions. Let's just say that her reaction to the events of the Goblin will be pivotal and how things. All right, next question.
Dave, we should go through the rules for raising your hand to come up on the stage.
We have rules. I don't have rules, Craig. Like these rules are.
Yeah,
they're not of my invention. I'm not promoting any rules, mate. There are 10 of us. There are 15 of us in the room. So to be honest, if anyone wants to jump up, that they can. If you put your hand up, I will add you to the stage and you can talk. I have a question then. So we obviously, I don't know if you're aware. Like I know American Dave has been watching these along with me. Sanderson's been putting out a series of how to write fantasy like lectures,
right?
And so I was wondering if you might consider, with you're now embarked on taking on 2 apprentices, and you're thinking about how to pass on your art, and would you consider a mini podcast or lecture series or something in that vein, which helps some of us aspiring writers?
Yes, actually, I've been thinking about that more and more as I've had to applications for conventions where, and I think a spellmonger writing class would be great. I enjoy passing along. And to be honest, I've watched his stuff. I was just talking with someone this weekend about how I did find it valuable not to read their books as much as listen to their experience as writers, how they approach something. And I would add to that list George R.R. Martin. He's done some great interviews over the years about how he gets to hit how he develops his stuff. And another guy, if you, what's that?
I said how not to write the last book in the series.
Well, yeah, there's that, but I can't fault his creative approach, and he has a lot of very valuable insights. The thing is, I didn't start reading Martin with Game of Thrones. I actually first encountered him with his novella Sand Kings way back in the 80s. He was a sci-fi writer long before he was a fantasy writer. And he actually dabbled in television for a while. He was one of the writers on Beauty and the Beast, which I thought the writing was good, but the subject matter was cringy. But I understood what he was doing with that. And he's got a lot of powerful insights about the creative process as a whole. And somebody else, another author, I would recommend. Different authors I would recommend for different elements of fantasy. Sure, you can listen to me, and I'm that I know, but I'm watching these guys too and listening to critically to what they're saying. And for the most part, it's rare that I come across something that I'm like, oh, way off base, dude. What are you thinking? There have been a couple, but it's few and far between. And I think anybody who wants to indulge in that sort of creative endeavor, and it's a huge undertaking, you and makes you emotionally vulnerable. That first book that you slap out on the table with the intentions of turning it into a series, you're really putting your abilities on display for criticize, and it can be really hard. And there's a lot about being a writer and the creative process that no one tells you when you're thinking about getting into it. But later on, those things become really important. You develop personally and what kind of material. One guy I would recommend for character, read his book and watch anything on his discussions of character. God, the guy who wrote Ender's Game. God, I'm blanking on his name. I can't believe that. Come on, help me out, guys.
Yeah, just grabbing it. Orson Scott Card.
That's it, Orson Scott Card. He lives in Greensboro, which is like an hour away from my house. And I actually met him. I met him the night he won the Hugo for his second novel in the Speaker for the Dead series. And so that was a trip. Seeing a guy who had just won not one but two big awards for a book and its sequel. I think that was the first that had ever happened. But his insights are brilliant. He wrote a great book on the subject. I would recommend anybody who writes fiction to take a look at, regardless of the genre. Being familiar with some of his other work, The Tales of Alvin Maker, which is colonial, which fast does a great job for the first three books. I wasn't as fond of the his characters in that just ring at the point where it really hits you in the heart, and I've stolen as much of his technique as I can developing little things like Alia not liking cooked fruit. That actually came up on Facebook yesterday. But little things like that, characters depth that is hard to get sometimes. So I recommend Card. But yeah, I'm thinking about doing a full series on world building, character arcs, putting pistols on the mantelpiece, all of it. I'd love to share my experience and help other people create the same sort of scale that I've tried to create with Spellmonger.
Teenage Ender, your background noise is getting a little loud.
Yeah, dude. Silence. I'm just going to
Terry,
mute you.
why don't you give us
There we
your
go.
book schedule?
Right now, and I was just writing this down for the newsletter. Right now, my next deadline is October 1st for Sea Mage, which gives me what feels like an expansive amount of time to get it written. A whole a whole 6 months to write it. That seems like a luxurious amount of time after the 6 weeks that we just did. So 6 months sounds amazing.
Sorry, I just want to codify that. Like, I don't know if that's the right word. Codify? No, it's definitely probably codify. Terry hasn't just written two novellas since January. They're two full-blown novels. There's a 40 chapter novel and a 35 chapter novel. Like, They're not short
43
books.
chapters technically because I couldn't cram it all into 40 chapters. I feel guilty
Yeah,
about
that's
that.
right.
But
Sorry.
girls just have more words, and the romance novel just had more words. So that's what it came down
So
to.
for looking at
And the 35
calendar,
Golden Goblin's 35 chapters, but it's got a
Yeah.
lot of action in it.
so
Yeah.
so the Talon and the Flame should be out soon. Golden Goblin should be
I'm
out
hopeful,
this
yes.
summer sometime.
I'm hopeful for that too. I don't have precise release dates. A lot of it will depend on John Lee and the new narrator, feet wet and getting through it. And there can be post production issues as well. But I'm hopeful that both of them will be out towards the end of the summer, early fall. I'm really looking forward. It would be great if they came out. That would ego stroke. So just saying.
Podium's had Talon and the Flame now for 2 months.
Yes, but they're breaking in a new narrator, which, as we know from the Legacy and Secrets, can be difficult, and so we're trying to be a little more painstaking.
You're cutting out, Terry.
John Lee could probably do this in his sleep at this point. But that being said, the books are big enough where for every 9,000 words, that's an hour of product that a narrator turns out, and that's usually almost an hour and 45 minutes of actual takes, and then they have to go through it in post production and edit it and all that. So that's fun. So the timelines are tend to be firm. The deadlines are firm, but how things come out on the other end, that can be variable sometimes. And then there's trying to coordinate the release of the audio with Talon and the Flame. I'm going through the publishing process with an editor and all proofreader, and they tend to be a little more fly by independently produced stuff. I will give you those dates as quickly as I. But approximately towards the end of the, towards the second half of the year,
Q3.
one or both of them should be.
Yeah, let's introduce some business speak on this. It's Q3 that we're looking at towards the end of Q3.
Yeah, there you go. It'll be Q3 before one of them gets released. So you've got a long summer without any immediate spellmonger. That being said, I'm playing around with a couple of short stories, short story ideas that I might throw out there as one shots on Kindle, just because I don't have and I've got these stories that are telling me they want to be. So I may throw those out there just to keep everybody interested.
We got I've got a couple of short stories, and then you could up.
Okay. I have a couple of short stories in mind that I might write and release on Kindle, just because they're demanding to be written, and I don't have might play around with it.
Sorry, I don't have a
definite anthology.
We're all
Okay,
chip
I'm
in
sorry.
And buy you a microphone.
Yeah, maybe we cut the cameras. That might work.
I need a better rig. I've got the light now, which is bleaching out my face.
Yep.
But I definitely need a new microphone.
I've got several. I spent a good bit of money on my what is it? It's blue. That thing.
Oh yeah.
Pretty good. You know.
Have you got a full-on YouTuber, Mike? Is that what that's going on, Craig? Are you secret streamer? Is this what's happening?
He should be.
I claim nothing. But we've got Glasshound up, who I guess was his to ask a question.
All right.
Well, so I happen to be a glass artist, and I've been thinking about the megalith. And I'm wondering if making a green orb is fairly easy to do. And I'm thinking I could put dichroic glass in it, which is glittery. And I don't know if that would fit with the megalith or not. And then
Sure.
I've also, and I've also been thinking about the cage the megalith is in and what it looks like, artistically speaking. And so, I don't know, I was basically asking if you'd like a megalith.
Oh, I would love one. I really would. And I'd be very interested to see your interpretation, what you think it looks like.
Yeah.
I think that would be great. I always envisioned something like the royal orb that various
Kings, emperors, and popes had.
similar to that
Close, Terry.
without the gaudy cross on top.
Sorry, we got
Um,
sorry, Terry. We got the royal orb, and then you could have.
Okay, like the royal orb that the medieval kings would carry along with their scepter when they were sitting on the throne, only without the gaudy cross on top, is kind of the size and heft for it. But I would love to see your art.
Well,
Let's put it that way.
I can get pretty crazy with my color, but obviously you want something that has a depth to it that kind of draws your eye into it, so you don't want to obscure too much.
Sure.
So just some kind of a band around it. What color would the band be around it?
Gold, because Menelin is just that gaudy.
Oh, well, that's the hats. Okay, just the funny hats.
No,
Okay.
so
exactly.
just as a small thing though, the and you can make it however you want to interpret it, but the megalith had a gold cage around it with a snowflake
Right.
motif.
Yeah, so
There you
if the
go.
little floating version crashed to the ground, you needed
So
to
if it
build
crashed
a
to the
castle
ground,
around it.
it wouldn't break apart like
Yes.
the
Witch
giant
sphere.
witch stone did.
Yes.
Witch sphere. That's
Right,
the one.
because the witch spheres are a form of they're not glass. They're you said it earlier,
Amber.
right? They're a form of amber.
Right.
Yeah.
They're an organic mineral.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, he's got one there. I love it. Okay. Well, that's basically what I had.
Yeah.
So
I
I'll give it a go. I'll give it a go.
I would love to see
what
it.
happens here. Yeah, it might take.
Okay.
Well, probably will take me a few months for sure to
No,
work
I
it out.
look forward to it. I love the fan art that people have been inspired to make with Spellmonger. I love art in general. This is something I hadn't considered or anticipated. But yeah, man, I'd love to see that. That would be wild.
Also, what shade of green? Do you have a particular type of green that you like? There's a lot of greens out there.
Yeah, there is. It's a vivid. I want to say emerald, but it's actually a little. Well, all amber is. You get the nice bright yellow. I would say that Erionite isn't like regular amber. Erionite isn't. Usually, the pieces of polished amber that we see are somewhat uniform. But if you look at different types of amber, some of it's milky, some of slightly different shade. It depends on what tree it came from, where it was when it fossilized. Those things can affect it too. So you got some play there. But in general, I like a rich emerald green associated with. And then for the magical glow around it, usually pale and but that vivid green is really what I like. Artistic representations of your.
You cut out when you said the pale glow or the vivid glow around the outside. What color?
Right. The vivid glow around Erionite when it's being used for magic. I like that to be a little paler than the actual stone. The stone tends to be a little darker. The glow tends to be lighter and a little more ethereal. But I like the really vivid greens for Erionite.
Okay, and then the internal structure can have some, like I guess, faceting or whatever inside there. From
Hey,
I'll go.
actually,
Look at
what I would
yeah,
recommend is some kind of snowflake. If you could do, I don't know if you can embed a snowflake inside the green, but you're the artist, and I trust your judgment.
I don't know if I could embed a snowflake in it either. I'll have to take a look at that. That's a tough one
Okay.
for hot glass. But I'll see what I can come up with. A little guidance is kind of what I was after. So that helps, and I'll see what I can wrangle up.
What part of the
Excellent,
country are you
excellent.
in?
Whatever you can do,
Tom?
I look forward to it.
I'm sorry.
Where are you from?
Oh, the West Coast. I'm Santa Cruz, California, basically. Davenport, California, specifically is where my studio is. And
Okay.
I'm Chris John, and my name is Chris Johnson. If you Google Chris Johnson Glass, you'll see some of the stuff I do.
Excellent.
ChrisJohnsonGlass.com. Yeah.
I'm actually hopeful that in the next couple of months, a friend of mine has a house in San Diego. He wants my wife and I to come down and visit him at. And if I do, I will let everybody in Southern.
You froze, Terry.
Did I freeze out?
Now you're back.
You did.
Okay, good. I think that one was Starlight that time, Starlink. But I'm planning on in the next couple of months going out to San Diego, and I will let all my Southern California fans know about it so that we can do a meetup somewhere centrally located. I'm helping wedding, so that's what I'll be doing out there. So. But I'd love to meet my Southern California fans, and so if I have the opportunity, I'll let you know. And if you have any more specific questions about it, email me. As these guys will tell you, email is usually the best way to get in contact with. I check it at least twice a day. All right.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your books. Thanks. I love the stories. Just I keep rereading and rereading, and in fact, I think I'm in the middle of Foot Wizard again. Yeah, so,
Oh, excellent.
one
of my faves.
Continue.
Yeah, the what is the stone that he's going after? I haven't got there yet. He puts it into the staff, the tree, the heart of the tree. That would be something that would be cool to make too. Yeah,
It would.
I would make that using a what's called a phosphor glass, because it is a naturally translucent material, but it's like the stuff they made Lalique. If you're familiar with Lalique, the French company that does these statues that are kind of white, but they're milky, and when you look through them, you see different colors like blues or yellows or reds. And it all has to do, the phosphate opal all has to do with like the thickness of the material because it has these nanoparticles in it. And so you can't take a little bit of phosphate opal and put it on a piece of glass and have it work. The piece has to be completely made out of the phosphate opal, which you have to have a separate pot of, you have to have a furnace with a pot full or a crucible full of that material in order for you to make something that works. And but because of that translucency that you can see kind of almost all the way through it, it's a stunning material to work with, and it would be fun if I had an idea of the size and shape of that thing to give that a go. But we'll do that. We'll save that after the Megalith. But it sounds like a lot of fun.
You blew my mind, man. I'm looking forward to it. I really am. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Talk to you later.
So, Terry, are you ever going to write the book that you've talked about with Rudy POV, and finding Smokey the Bear, and the Elastian book on her time in Purwin?
Yes, both of those have come, if not to the front burner, at least off to the side a little bit where they're warming up. I am actively working with Hayden on writing the first Ruderall book. At this point, there are going to be at least 4 Ruderall books that we will co-write, because Hayden wants to get him past the events of Practical Adept, and to where he finds his eventual love interest, we'll just say, and I'll leave it at that because it gets complicated. So we are exploring that definitely, and we have a comprehensive story arc for Ruderall that goes beyond where he is at this point in the series. And what was the other part of that question, Craig? Ruderall. Right. Lelastian. Yes, but that one's going to take a little bit longer. After the events of the Golden Goblin, the reader's perception of Lelastian may change a little bit as you realize that her backstory is a lot deeper than we all expected. And again, I'll just leave it at that for now. But telling that tale, I'm setting up to tell it in the Golden Goblin. It will probably be concurrent with about book 20 or book 21, because I need to lay some more groundwork before I can tell that story. Appreciate for what she is and what she did.
It comes up in our social media a lot, those 2 stories, because they've been out there a while. You've hinted at them, especially in Foot Wizard, for Lelastian. So people want to know. Inquiring minds want to know.
And I want to write it. It's not a matter of I don't have all the ideas for it. I think I'm pretty sure how I want it to come out. What I need to do is lay the groundwork for some of the other characters that will be there, so that when you meet them, you'll go, oh, to what she does, the position that she put in, and how she reacts. She's got serious issues with it. Let's just say that. She is every college professor with a bug up some cause that you met, but she tries to be enlightened about it. And even for being several hundred, she's really naive in a lot. And that book will kind of be the story of her discovering her humanity that she doesn't think at the beginning of the story that she can, because humans are so alien. So it's a good alien perspective.
Well, she does have a problem with authority.
She does. Oh, yes, she does. And it's only going to get worse.
Okay. Anybody got any questions down in off stage? If not, I'm going to look over here to the side. There was a couple here. How to Finish a Story by G.R.R.M. Martin. Oh, nice. Some of the nobles have family names. Does Menelon's family have one?
Okay. Yes and no. And let me explain some of my naming conventions with that. The Narasi derived people who are the dominant civilization in the 5 duchies. Only the really high nobles really maintain any kind of family line. And they only do that in relation ancestors descended.
You're cutting it out.
And so they're okay. They only use family line names for dynasties, essentially. For example, what's his name? Arlistan's dad, Arathaniel, and his family. all have a group name to kind of define their dynasty, but that's really only for the upper. In cultures that are descended more from the magocracy, you have last names. Those, like in Paris or in some parts of Vermeer and in Winchar, you have last names that go back all the way to the magocracy, surnames, basically. Um, uh, Most other Narasi cultures and tribal cultures will be, Ugg, son of Mongo, something like, or in a medieval culture, really defines you as, or what you do, or something like that. And of course, with War Magi,
isn't Min through his mother distantly related to an archmage?
yeah, well, that's the tale.
You wrote it.
Through when, yeah, and I wrote it as the kind of folklore, family folklore, that I think every family has a bit of, and I wanted to kind of throw that in at the beginning of the story because when you are telling the story of how you became the greatest wizard in the world, having a little street cred, little backstory that might explain why. Makes you slightly more interesting, or at least slightly more credible.
Well, that pistol's been
So
sitting
that's
on
part
the
of
shelf
it.
since Spellmonger. It hasn't really been brought out and utilized by Minolin in talking to anybody.
Right, right. And it's not that important in feudal societies as much as, being the spellmonger or the dragon slayer,
But
the hawk
being the
maiden.
dodge, I think it would be important.
Yes, and see, that's where things are going to change because Faris is an imperial derived culture.
Yep.
And Mercandar will have to adapt himself to that, and will eventually a kind of a name for, which will be interesting. How that plays out. I haven't made any definite decisions about that, but I've definitely thought about it. Good question, though.
Okay, next question online from Nostalgia. When you started working on Spellmonger, how robust were your maps, history, lore, cultural outlines? What came first? The first words of the story or a map of the five duchies?
They kind of evolved concurrently. Basically, I had to. I wrote the first chapter of Spellmonger, which is actually a complete rewrite of an earlier work I did that I wasn't happy with. But I wrote the first chapter of Spellmonger literally while I was working on the map in Microsoft Paint. Not even Microsoft Paint. It was actually a graphic section of Microsoft Word that I sketched out that first hideous map on. But it gave me the general idea of how the basics worked. It was the bones of the story. And as I went on, I tried to each new area and make them distinctive and take into account. It's really a continuing process. I'm still doing that to this. I will mention a couple of things about a culture from Minolin's perspective, and then clothe it with more detail in various until by the time we get there, at least an idea of what that culture is like, at least being a. But I had to do kind of the same thing with and each. I had to do the same sort of thing with the Gervani and the Golden Goblin recently, and I am currently working on some of the cultural points of the Winchari and people in preparation for exploring that. Yes, I know Dave just eager to hear all about the and the big there. But I want to do a little bit more. I also want to flesh out the Merwini culture and the Cormyrean culture a little bit more. So we'll be seeing more hints about that and building it up. But yeah, you put down the bones and then you add some flesh, a couple of organs, kind of big cultural points that the society revolves around, and then you do the individual variations around the. It's really my process and how I do world. And I had the broad ideas for it as far back as the first book. But each book kind of helped me refine and define a culture in more detail and in more depth. And sometimes I go back and look at perspective too, which also adds some more.
You had me in the first 3 chapters as an old army guy, waking up hungover, having to go fight hungover, listening to a bell that was making your head hurt. You had me.
I got a question about your process, Terry, because you mentioned that you have stories that just keep wanting to be written. They're telling you they need to be written. How often does that happen? Do you have your characters
Had a lot
actually?
of us.
Do your characters
Have
actually
we had this
talk to you?
question from Joe Mander during his parley with Rondell and Marshall Arcane? Seating. Karakush says we share a more thoughtful approach to Lesser Alon. Perhaps it's in our family culture. Is Karakush of the Avalanche kindred?
I believe so. I'll have to go back and check my notes. But I believe he is Avalanche. And to go back to Ender's question,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Ender, if you could read.
yeah. So you
If
said
you could
you
read.
have you have books that talk to you, say they need to be written. Do your characters ever talk to you? And have you ever written something and had a character tell you, "No, that's not right. Change it."
Oh yeah, oh yeah. With Olmec the Green and with Caswallen in particular. But sometimes with Dara. Dara has surprised me a couple of times. And yeah, your characters do talk to you. You are investing them with their own voices. That's the only way they become authentic characters. And once they get their own voices, they haunt you to the point where you can start dreaming about them.
Do you hear them in
It's
John
really.
Lee's voice now?
I do. They all have English accents because everybody in a fantasy it has an English accent. Otherwise, it's not real fantasy. But the different variations of that. And no, sometimes your characters will wake you up in the middle of the night and demand that you pay attention to them. It's one of the creepier elements of the creative process. But especially as a writer, when you are trying to write a believable character, you have to invest them with enough depth as a personality in order to communicate that to your reader. And once they get their own voice, man, they never shut up. It's one reason why I've gone to Tyndall so many times, is because they're engaging characters. I've made them rivals from the beginning. I made them brothers from the beginning. And following that journey, there's always another chapter because their relationship continues, and that probably will remain. Doesn't, but in the meantime, I'm going to build on that relationship, and they're going to. And when they've had enough, that's the interesting thing. When a character comes in and I'm out, I can't do this anymore, and quits on you, and then you got to interrupt that and made a mistake that you need to correct, or if it's time to say goodbye to them. Great question, though, Ender.
Question from Ender on top of that. What's the book after Sea Mage?
It's probably going to be Theurge, because once we get to Sea Mage and we have to deal with a bundle, once that happens, let's just say the gods will be involved, and once the gods are involved, Minlin's looking at that he's kind of staved off until that point. but once he crosses that Rubicon, and basically becomes, the court of the gods, he's going to need a theurge, and we're going to get into the nature of the human gods on Calidor and some other things and theurge. That'll be book 19, and then book 20 will be Arc.
We're all dying
Archmage.
for the next meeting between Grindine and Minolin.
Oh, it's going to happen. I've already started writing that scene. And it's not just a meeting with her, but the next private meeting between them.
Well, even
Let's just say life is. Oh yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of dukes
We're
right
going
now
to see.
who are probably very torqued.
Right, and that's what he'll be dealing with in Sea Mage, and to a certain extent the Earth.
Well, doesn't that fulfill exactly what Anglin said? You don't coordinate with us. You don't tell us what you're doing. We can't control you. We're actually afraid of you now.
That's what wizards do.
Yeah.
Honestly. And that's Menolin's attitude. He has respect for the authority of the nobles. But he's a noble himself, and he realizes, the authority that they're clothed in doesn't make them better or smarter than anybody else. And once you realize that, it's room with a bunch of people in suits,
but they're kind
you
of
automatically assume that
everything together right now.
Right, and Menelin doesn't want to screw with that. He's not that much of a revolutionary, because he knows if he did, he would be the one put in charge. And at this point, he has enough responsibilities to contend with, where running an entire kingdom sounds glamorous. It's a lot of work, and he'd rather have other people do it and just not get in his way while he does what he knows to be the thing. The kingdom's important. He knows that. But he's got a higher purpose here, a higher goal, and the kingdom is a means to that. He will only spare the attention for the what the royal house wants, to the extent that it serves his purpose. And yeah, that's going to lead to conflict. Menelin will handle it when it pops up. And yeah, they're going to be pissed. They're going to be real pissed. I can tell you that right now. But by the time that they get to that point, they'll also realize that Menelin has out. That's where I'm going with that.
Well, it's kind of, he bent the rules of the commission he was given, and they interpreted it one way, and he interpreted it another, and hilarity ensued.
Gosh, if only we had a god of law to come in and adjudicate the whole thing.
That'd be interesting. My mandatory question for every show is, Heinrich Gerling, is he coming back anytime soon?
I'm angling with that. I got closer with it in the Golden Goblin, but yeah, that'll definitely be. He is coming back in some form or fashion.
Well, my without knowing anything from you, he's a nuclear bomb to me whenever he shows up. He's got knowledge of everything colonial, and knowledge of the agreements, and knowledge of what they talked to the Vundel about, that nobody else really has.
He also has politics.
Yes.
Keep that in mind.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, Craig. This is beta reading theory now. This is not general fan. Anyway, moving on. We've got a whoops, accidentally sent it your way. Oh, people are complaining they missed the first hour, and we're only running for another 15 minutes.
Yep.
But yeah, go on.
I'm recording it. I'll put it up. I can't guarantee the quality because Terry's mic's been cutting in and out, but it'll be put up.
Yeah. And if anybody has any specific questions that I don't get to, feel free to email me. My email is tmancour@gmail.com. And I do check it frequently. And if you have a burning question that you have to have me answer, I'm more than happy to especially now that I'm done with the composition for this last book, I'm more than happy if I can.
Right.
Mhm.
Dave, you got
All right,
any
next
more
one.
questions?
That's a few coming through thick and fast. I don't know
Well,
if you're
Jake
going
the
through an order.
Artbeard asked, who would you prefer as a showrunner for a series?
Ooh, that's a tough one. That is a tough one. And I think it's probably the guy who did. If I had my druthers, and his name is, pardon me, he was the showrunner for Firefly.
No.
Tim. Oh, someone will know who I'm talking about. But yeah, he, in my opinion, Firefly was one of the best produced and executed TV shows. If I had Tim Minear, that's it. If I had to pick a guy, handpick a guy to be a showrunner, it would be probably him. I thought he did a master other shows.
Yep.
But I've always admired the shows that he's worked on for their high quality. And he had some of the best. When I was looking into production, Firefly, he had some of the one liners. For anybody who doesn't know, yeah, I'm a huge brown coat. To the extent where I have 2.5 Firefly novels on fireflyfans.net under the pseudonym Screw the Alliance. The first one is Kaylee's Lament. The second one is the longest book I have ever written, The Treasure of Li Fong Wu. And I wrote both of those out of pure love of the game. I knew I wouldn't make a dime off of them, but the characters were so engaging and the setting was so engaging that it was one of those times where I just had to write a story that was in my head because Fox killed my dreams when they canceled the show. But yeah, Tim Minear would be my ideal showrunner. But I would take a look at anybody who came to the room with a fair amount of experience or at least enthusiasm for the product and wanted to make a classy show. That's my big thing. It has to be in every way that I'm open. That's my biggest consideration.
Law Brother Julez the Writer. How about County Lensley going forward? Is Min getting another county?
No, Min doesn't want another county. Min's got enough counties. There will be a new count of
The Bontalvilles.
Yeah. And that's discussed actually somewhat in Talon and the Flame. Make sure you pick that up when it comes out so you can see the machinations. It actually becomes a plot point. But no, Min doesn't want any more. He's not to conquest for conquest's sake, power, secular power like that. At this point, he's had plenty. He's got plenty, and even picking up Faris is going to be a challenge. To that being said, he's very invested in who is going to be now, because they're going to have an effect on Seven, and so that doesn't mean he politicking needs to, but I also think that wants the job. But good question.
Drawmanda the Wise. Are the Orions a subtype of the alkaline that involved in the light?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Um, it's got a complicated answer, so I don't really want. Tell you what, next conclave, ask me again. I might have a developed answer. But that's an excellent insight, and I will get serious. And I appreciate.
Well, I asked
So
you a
yeah, let
similar
me get back to you
question
on that.
on the Draconians and their relationship to the
Mhm.
dragons.
Right, right, and especially in the third decology, we'll get more into that as we go from a mixture of sci-fi and kind of. I don't even know if there's a word for it. It's between a space opera and um, a political drama, I guess. Things are going to get really weird towards the end of the series. I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, those answers are going to come out, and those. But I'm drawing it out. I don't sci-fi at this point in the series. We're just getting into the early elements of it. The major developments on that side later, but I also want to maintain I would say if you're a good enough wizard, it doesn't matter. You're a good enough wizard, and that could be true in front of the king, the alcohol council, the parliament. It's more about the man setting. We're seeing how Minlin gets to be kind of.
Got another question from Dramanda the Wise. When Sazal the Yith assails Min's mind for the first time, Minolin somehow turns the tables and is able to read the creatures. Excuse me. Read the creature's emotions for a briefest moment. What is Zal the Yith so afraid of?
That's one of those questions that's not easily answered, because Zaldiyeth, he's essentially an elder god in the Cthulhu sort of sense. He's been around since before complex galactic structures even evolved, and so he also has a he has two consciousnesses in him that communicate, and they have different fears. The one is just terrified of losing ignorance, very existentially based. Just the worst, most absolute. The other is belligerent to the point of the most primal, but it goes beyond that. They're both consciousnesses that are reacting to serious existential issues, but they're not even issues that our human minds can wrap around. They're he's dealing with species that basically see the existence of life itself as an aberration, the existence of matter as an aberration. He's a multidimensional creature as well, and so we can't comprehend what he's truly afraid of. We can distill it down to a similar emotional approach to what we might have, but we just don't have this. Min gets some gleanings with his experience with Zaliath and Azamatat and all that, but it's really you're looking at a creature who is fundamental and is fighting a war or living in existence in which human beings and all of our great civilization and lofty ideas as inconsequential or bacteria. And so it's really hard to ascribe your motivations. And I understand you Azam. Zol the Youth is that's a little more secret. Zol the Youth and actually easier to answer. Zol the Youth is afraid of the formless, and he's afraid of the formless because the formless have basically a vendetta on all the ancient gods. They want to be the most ancient thing left alive, so there's no contradiction how they tell the story of what happened to them. So Zal is hiding out from the formless, and he's doing so on a planet that actually has formless on it, which sounds kind of crazy, but Zal has a very different approach to to the great game between the formless and everybody else, the other elder gods, than a human being would. So I hope that answers your question. It's hard to explain, but that's essentially what Zal is afraid.
Okay, Terry, this is basically the end, so this is your chance to wrap it up.
Yeah, Craig, 1 sec. Sorry. Yeah, there is 5 minutes left, but we do have a question from Call Me Aries. It's a bit more light-hearted. During Thaumaturge, Min and Gareth talked about taking over the Wilderlands League. Were they ever successful in using it in any way?
That will play out, but essentially they do it through Rael and the Wizards Mercantile. But yeah, that will play out. That is something that will, because of the arc that we'll see probably around book 20 or so.
Cool.
All right. Any other questions? I'm gratified that I satisfied. Thank you all for. I want to thank everybody for coming out and asking questions. I feel like I'm kind of out of the woods now that I've done these two books back to back, and they're very different books. I'm excited for going into Sea Mage, which will be yet another very different book. Okay, I'm seeing in the chat, read it, Dave. So go ahead and read it, Dave.
Love the series, Terry. Thank you for this wonderful creation that has obsessed my mind. Art.
Well, I share that. It obsesses my mind too, and I'm just happy to share it with everybody else. And I'm glad I can do it in a way that entertains and inspires. I keep getting fan letters from people who tell me about the very deep ways that my work has moved them, and it can be deep and heavy sometimes, but it can also be very lighthearted and very soul fulfilling to know that something that you as a creator made, and I hope whatever creative endeavors enjoy this someday, where you make something that moves or inspires hope, that it changes their, but also realize that's a heavy, when you just were trying to tell an entertaining. So I'm gratified, but I'm also deeply humbled by it, and it makes me strive to increase the quality with each book, and also not to repeat. One thing that one of my fans wrote to me recently was that he loved the Spellmonger series because it was never the same. Each new volume explores a new type of story, and he really people. But I'm hoping by the time you get and see and appreciate just what I've done and how big I've done it, that it moves everybody. If nothing, so that's my goal. As I said.
Okay, I'm going to end the recording here.
All right.
Done.